let's just imagine a scenario where a parent is really keen for their child to learn English, um, but is not sure for lots of different reasons. Maybe because they know that it can open up future doors when they become an adult and their careers and things like this. As well as perhaps it's a more of a I think, well, they like traveling, the family like traveling, and so they go to places where English is quite widely spoken, not the only language, but widely spoken across the world. So through their travel, they want their children to grow up knowing the language so that they can continue to travel through their life and being able to communicate in that respect. So let's just imagine there's some parents that are like that who's saying, well, I don't know, should I start now? Should I do it a bit later? When they're a little bit more mature and able to cope with such, with another language. We're talking about someone who's maybe 10 at that point or older. What sort of advice would you give to that sort of parent? Because most of my parents that I have, most of my clients have made the decision to take on English. They've gone through, we understand the importance that it plays in our minds about, me being, so I'm the parents. I understand the importance that it plays in my mind. Now I want my child to do it. But I'm a bit, well, when do I start? What do I do? How do I get going? So what sort of advice would you give those sorts of parents?
So I'll speak from the parent perspective, from my own experience, and why I started early. And now, well, my oldest is 13, and the second one is almost 10. Okay, and I'll speak about the importance of the way and why I made the decision. And I'll be based it out of the process of habit. There's a really good book, and probably more than one, on just habit and the power of growing habits. And language is a very interesting beast. Not sure if you know, but linguists themselves, they have a hard time defining what language is. And there's a number of definitions. But one of those things that I would say it defines language is habit. It's a beast of habit. The longer you do it, the more often you do it, the better. So I did not know this at the time because now my kids are older. But when they were younger, I would just, naturally just speak the language every day. Right. And now what I've come to realize is that they've developed such a strong habit for speaking that particular language to me that they can turn around and look at my face and they cannot speak another language other than the language I spoke to them, Spanish. They're completely fluent in Mandarin and in English. But I turn around and I ask him a question in English and he can't do it. He has to speak Spanish for that.
Okay, there's a little bit of a cut up there. So what you're saying is he can't do it.
So I did not know it at the time, but he has to use Spanish, basically. And, I did not, I was not as experienced a parent back then, but now I see myself, and when I see kids who are learning that language at a later age, they don't have that habit developed. And it's very hard to, whatever image you want to use, to put on that hat or to insert that tape into their brains to speak that language. It's very hard to get out of that habit of speaking it. Also, when they are older, they can make their self-conscious decisions about whether I want to speak it or not. And that's a very powerful stance that they could take. They could just decide, no, I'm not going to speak it. And sometimes as a parent, it would tear your heart apart because they made that decision. Or was it our fault that we did not plant that seed earlier on so that it would grow and develop into not an interest but into something that would be part of their lives, part of their personality, part of who they are, right? And at the time, I did not know it, but I was planting that seed through habit.
Mm.
Um, but yes, they can make their own decisions later on, and sometimes it's too late.
Okay. So in a very short sentence in all of that, what's the key point being made there so that a parent can just pinpoint it? Create a habit of speaking in different languages or just one language?
So I would say once you've identified the target language you want to learn, create a habit of practicing, practicing it in some way, whether it is listening, speaking it, or being exposed to someone speaking it in a certain environment.
Okay. Okay. That's